interesting. Hi, everybody. This is Debbie from Spooky Things. And I know I've been kind of away from the show for a little bit, but had a lot going on. Um, Tonight, we've got our show with Mr. Keith Evans, and he's an author. Um, and Mr. Evans, we want to talk about some of your books. You say you've just got a book that's coming out.
Yes.
Um, and if I'm not mistaken, it was A Planet of the Vampires.
Yes. Planet
Is
of the
is
Vampires.
the most recent
It's
one that you're
already
bringing?
out. It's already out in ebook, and it should be out soon in paperback.
Okay. Um, Now, where is it going to be available at?
The ebook right now is available on Kindle, and when the paperback comes out, it should be either tomorrow or maybe even late today. It's going to be available on
Oh, okay.
Amazon, and it
Oh,
should be
okay. So it's just
available.
recent.
It should be available in most English-speaking countries within the world, um, even
Okay.
Japan, because a lot of countries they learn two or three languages from elementary school. So a lot of countries, there's people that
Yeah.
speak fluent English. It's different than here. Here we only learn English, but in other countries, from like elementary school on up, they usually learn three main languages. So
It's true.
anyway, I'm happy to have the book out. You want me to tell you a little bit about the book?
Yes, absolutely.
It is about a theoretical biosphere on the planet Proxima Centauri B, which was discovered in 2016. It's a planet that is tidal locked with its star, and its star is called Proxima Centauri. And by being tidal locked, one side always faces the hot sun. So one side, if anything lives there, it would have to be what we call extremophiles, something that can live in very, very hot liquid. And then the other side is very, very cold. So extremophiles can live in the cold also. So there's a possibility that extremophiles could live in that area. But the location on this planet, Proxima Centauri B, where vampires could live, would be the Goldilocks zone. And that is the area close to where the edge of where the hot sun meets the cold area. You have one side that is like total night and the other side that's total day. In that area there, the sun is on a angle, kind of like at sunset, 24 hours a day. So that area would be the only surface area where vampires could live. Otherwise, they would just disintegrate from the heat. It's so hot. And then on the other side, it would be very cold. Theoretically, a vampire doesn't die of old age. So a vampire will not die if they freeze. If they freeze, they're just in like suspended animation until someone finds them and falls them out. But I'm sure they don't want that to happen to themselves. So they try to stay away from the real cold area and just stay in that Goldilocks zone. And by the size of the planet, it is considered that that Goldilocks zone is something like 60 kilometers, which I think boils down to about 50 miles wide. So it's not a very wide area, but it would go around the whole circumference of the planet. Now, vampires, I would say, have the technology to live underground, if not in caves. They might also have drilling equipment and can build their own underground structures. So that's where the majority of vampires would live. They would not live on the surface, they would live under the ground. And on the hot side, they'd have to live far enough below the surface that they're not, going to be harmed by the hot molten rock, which could go several miles deep. On the cold side, they just have to be low enough that they have insulated from the cold side. Uh, it's like caves here. If you're far enough down, it's going to be like 65, 70 degrees all year long in the cave system. So that's my way of looking at the theoretical biosphere of the planet uh, uh, Proxima Centauri B, where the vampires live. And chapter looks at another aspect of the vampire's life. Uh, for instance, like I look at the fact that vampires can read your brain waves if they're close to you, or they have a filtering system where they don't read everyone's brain waves because you know you don't want to know everything that your neighbors are doing. But if your neighbor's thinking
That's
about
the truth.
you, then they want to zero in on that. So every vampire knows what negative intention another vampire may hold or have against them. So that keeps crime down to almost zero because no vampire can get away with anything. If a vampire is thinking about stealing something from another vampire, well, that vampire already knows it. So
Right.
I think that's one good thing about being able to read. I hate to use the term read other people's mind because if you could read their mind, you would be able to read everything that they have stored in their mind. But if you're just picking up on their brain waves that are being given off at the time that that person's thinking about another vampire and maybe doing something negative towards that vampire, then it's more like reading your brain waves. But it's something that every vampire knows the other vampire has, so they know not to do anything wrong. Because if they're thinking something negative, that vampire is going to know about it. I think that's pretty cool, and I think that it would be helpful if humans could do that, because then no one could trespass against us or commit any felony towards us without us knowing
It's
that
true.
it's going to happen, and that would cut that
That's true.
out. So anyway, being title locked like that uh, is kind of unique because uh, Proxima Centauri b is very close to its host star, Proxima Centauri. And they theorized that at one time, Proxima Centauri b was further out in space, and somehow it traveled closer to um, its host star. And by doing
Hmm.
that, at one time, it may have not been tidal locked. So at one time, it might have been far enough away that it was in the Goldilocks zone and it didn't have one side that was super hot and that was locked with the sun and the other side that was super cold. Kind of like our moon. Our moon is tidal locked with Earth. And that happens when any really large object is close to a smaller object. That smaller object will tidal lock with it. And it just means that it's spinning at a rate that one side is always uh, towards the sun. It is spinning, but it's
Okay.
spinning at a rate that locks into the fact that that one side always stays uh, towards the sun. but it makes it very unique for life to actually appear and evolve on Proxima Centauri B. And I think the facts that the vampires are just very durable species. And I like to think of them as cryptids and also extraterrestrial. And the fact that they're very durable, they were able to survive when their planet, which we call Proxima Centauri B, became closer to their host star, uh, Proxima Centauri. And the fact that before it was close, they probably had a normal planet kind of like Earth. And I think that's what motivates them to come to Earth probably thousands of years ago. I think that motivated them to come here because Earth was more like the way their planet was before it became tidal locked when it got too close to the. Uh, it's a red dwarf star, Proxima Centauri, and Proxima Centauri is smaller than our sun, but they theorize, our sun is a star, but they theorize that on the planet Proxima Centauri B, their star, their host star, will actually appear to be almost 1.5 to 2 times larger in the sky than how our star looks from here. So,
Wow.
anyway, I think that's what motivated the vampires to actually come to Earth when they did. And I feel that the vampires have been here for a long time. And they say that we have certain amount of DNA which no other animal on Earth has. And that could be because we came from some other place, like say Mars, or it could
No.
be that thousands of years ago, the vampires looked at us and said, well, as a vampire, they can't go out in direct sunlight here on Earth because the star that we have is such a brilliant, bright star that it'll denature their DNA. And denature means to unravel. So if you're unraveling a vampire's DNA, you're going to kill them. You're just going to like boil them alive. So I think that was one of the reasons why they wanted to manipulate our genes and give us some of their own genes so we would be more like them so they could interbreed with humans. And then that way they would have offspring that would not be quite as sensitive to the sun as they are. And we do get sunburns, right? We do get skin
Right.
cancer. Of course, there's other
Right.
animals that get skin cancer too, but I don't know any animal that gets a sunburn like we do. So we do have a sensitivity to the sun, and I think that is because our ancient ancestors were the vampires, and I think the vampires, excuse me, did that so they could
Mhm.
breed with us. They wanted to make us more like them, so they would be compatible for breeding. So there might be a little bit, I think there's a little bit of vampire in all of us. Every once in a while, I'll do something really fast and really strange and quick and don't know how, how I did it. And, that might be the vampire trait coming out. You only use it when you need it. For instance, when I was in the Army the first time back in 1983, I got to Fort Benning in Georgia in 1983 in like the first week of June. And within a couple weeks, I was out doing something. Well, we, as medics, we did a lot of duty that had nothing to do with being a medic. So we were out doing some type of landscaping, and I was standing on the tailgate of a deuce and a half, which I'll never do that again. And the guy tried to tell me it was a deuce and a half that I got to drive later on. That deuce and a half, it jumps. When you go from first to second gear, it lunges. And the only way you
Wow.
can get it into second gear is to double clutch it. And some of the platoon sergeants would say, no, you just have to be a good driver. No, you have to double clutch it, and then you can get it in a second. And so I'm standing on the back of this deuce and a half, which I had never driven that deuce and a half, and I didn't know the ones I had driven weren't like that, and most of them aren't, but this one was. So when the guy left out the clutch to put it in first, I just spun me right off the back
Oh,
of the
wow.
tailgate. And I would have landed on my head, but I had my hands down and I just pushed out into a roll. And then everyone just looked at me. They were astonished. And I was astonished too, because that would have broke my neck if I'd have hit my head. I don't know how I did it. And then after that, they nicknamed me Superman because they said no one else could survive that. And so they didn't tell the chain of command because the chain of command would have wanted to do Article 15s. You know, medical units are very notorious for wanting to do Article 15s anytime they think something went wrong. So everybody just kept the whole thing to themselves. But I feel very lucky, and that's one time I don't know how it happened, but either I have a guardian angel, which I do think I do, but it could have been the guardian angel and my ancient genes concerning vampires who are my ancestors, their skill for quickness and agility coming out at a time when I needed it. And it might be totally subconscious. So I think we do have some type of genes from a vampire, and I think that that's what makes us do some really superhuman things. I don't know if you've heard about people that if there's a danger or someone's hurt, that they can like lift a car off of somebody. And they say, well,
Right?
it's a whole lot of adrenaline. Now, adrenaline and probably air our ancient connection with vampires that we have a certain gift that we just don't use until we really need it, and then it kicks in. So, did you have any questions? I hate to continue on. You might have a question about something.
No, this is fascinating. No, I'm listening to every word.
Yeah,
Um,
if I had deep pockets and could really just advertise both of my books, the second book, Vampires Dead or Alive, and this book, Planet of the Vampires, I think both books would be number one hits because the second book, Vampires Dead or Alive, everyone who's read it just said it blew their mind. They were like, "How do you think of this?" So, I guess you could say if I could advertise heavily, which I don't can't afford that, it would be like the Harry Potter type book because everybody loved Harry Potter and I loved it
oh
too.
yeah,
And
oh yeah.
I think that's the way my books are. And my first book, The Hayes House Ghost for People too, even though I loved it and it was a heartwarming story about ghosts and spirits from two families that really cared about the house that was built in 1908 by Mr. Buck, the first family that lived there. Most people don't want to read about your paranormal experiences. They want to go out and actually live it by doing their paranormal experiences. And that's the reason why I tried to get away from writing books about my paranormal experiences, even though I have books coming up that are in the chain that I've been working on since what 2020, and just with all the finances and all the expenses, I just haven't got back to travel and doing continue to do the paranormal research. But I do have other books that I probably will write about my paranormal research. Uh, but that's sometime in the future. Did you have a question? I sorry I cut you off.
No, no, not at all. Um, what inspired you to write these books?
Well, the first book, Vampires Dead or Alive, uh, was a collection of thoughts and feelings about vampires' abilities to do what they do, ranging back from the time that I watched the TV. It was a British sitcom called Dark Shadows, and it was on probably in
I
the late
remember Dark
60s,
Shadows.
the early
Mm-hmm.
70s. And
Mm-hmm.
to me, Barnabas Collins was like my hero. A lot of elementary and middle school kids like Batman or Superman, but Barnabas Collins was like my superhero. I thought he was the good guy who got villainized just because he was a vampire. And every super ability that he had, I was always saying, how does he vanish into thin air? And in my
Yeah.
second book, Vampires Dead or Alive, I have a chapter on being able to shapeshift. And I think that what vampires do when they shapeshift, they go back in time. They have some way of bending space and time just for their physical body and not for the room in which they're in, but just for their physical body. They can go back to a time, I believe in reincarnation. They go back to a time where they were just a spirit. There's always a period of time before you're reincarnated. Once you die, you'll be, say, a spirit for maybe a year, and then you might come back as a goldfish. Then you might die, be a spirit for a while. You might come back as a vampire on Proxima Centauri B. So I feel vampires go back to a time when they were a spirit, and that's how they instantaneously go from being a flesh and blood uh, vampire to just disappearing. So I uh, I think that would be something that a human being could not do, and it's
Right.
also something that a dead person can't disappear either. So we always look at vampires as being the living dead. And, I don't really think vampires, compared to a human being, are dead or alive. They're somewheres in between. And that was the conclusions I drawn from that book. And I look at every characteristic as to whether it's more like a living human being or more like a dead human being, because we always look at vampires as being dead. But I really think that's not a really good description of a vampire. I think they have characteristics of being dead because on other planets, life isn't always like life is here on Earth. And we only know and only think about what we do know, but we got to broaden our minds to say, well, life on other planets could be very different. For instance, on Proxima Centauri B, um, we always picture the bloodthirsty vampire is going to come and drain our blood at night while we're asleep. And I'm frightened. I can't go to sleep. Well, anyway, I feel that on Proxima Centauri B, the home of the vampires, that they actually have uh, a combination of photosynthesis and biological animals or species that are stationaries. They don't move around, they don't have any locomotion. And when you live in a cave, what's the need for locomotion? And if the vampires
Well,
only
you
need
can't
some of
see.
your blood and don't have to kill the vampires don't have to kill you to eat your meat, why do you need to run from them? So I really feel that they have a combination of plant, tree, animal, biological species that can utilize photosynthesis. So if they have bright lights in the cave, that the species might be able to live right off of that light and produce photosynthesis to actually feed on. And I feel that a lot of these animals either have some type of covering, which is like fur, scales, or even plates that can be removed without harming the animal, kind of like the way we shave a dog, a long haired dog during the summertime. And I think the
Mm-hmm.
vampire can actually boil this in the water that they have on Proxima Centauri B, and then drink the blood from that. And I really feel that blood on Proxima Centauri B is very nutritious. I think it's got more nutritional value in it than our blood. Our blood would not sustain a grown man if they just drank blood. They would, they would be nutritionally poor and probably sickly. So I think the blood on Proxima Centauri B is much more nutritious. And I think there's a probability that a vampire might drink one pint of blood, not biting something or biting it with its teeth or anything like that, but actually just drinking it like we would drink tea, like we would boil tea leaves and drink, hot tea or iced tea. And I think maybe one pint would be sufficient for their daily allowance. I think blood on Proxima Centauri B is that nutritional. It's not like our blood here. Our blood here is just very low on anything that we would need nutritionally. So I look at it that
I
way,
believe
and
that.
I have a way of looking at it that I don't fear vampires, and I think that vampires are probably very sophisticated, probably light years ahead of us, and in many respects, I think the vampires might have saved the human species because I think there are other extraterrestrials out there that see us as a threat to ourselves. They see us as a threat of, engaging in nuclear war and actually killing our own planet. And I'm sure there's other species out there that say, hey, vampires, they're out of control. And now I'm not saying that these other species want to destroy the earth. They don't want to do that. But I think the other species would like to eliminate human beings because we are a threat to killing the earth. And at the same time,
You
we are a threat. Global warming is taking place, and that's because of all the extra carbon dioxide that's been put in to the atmosphere since we started burning fossil fuels like coal
right.
and gas, and the fact that that's taking place, and most people say, "Oh, I don't believe in science." Uh,
Yeah, kind of hard
Other
to.
species look at us and say, "My God, we don't want them on their planet." So I do feel that the vampires have stepped in because they do have a relationship with us and they have interbreeded with us for thousands of years. And they're probably, I would say, they are the species that manipulated us. So we're less like chimpanzees and more like humans because they wanted to breed with us. And I think the
Right.
DNA that we have that can't be found any place else on Earth came from the vampires. And I think that's the reason why they consider us family and they don't want other species to kill us, even though I think they also realize that we are a harm to ourselves. I mean, when you using nuclear war to win a war is like picking up a gun and shooting yourself so you can win the war. Because if you destroy the
It's true.
planet you live on and no one, even species that aren't human beings, can't live, trees can't live, if nobody can live on the planet once there is a nuclear war, what do you have to win? You have everything to lose. And I think that's one reason why, excuse me, uh, other species would like to eliminate us. And I know people are afraid of that, but you got to look deep. You got to look in the mirror and say, well, if they're afraid of us, what in the heck are we doing that's causing other species to be afraid of us? And, you know, anytime you have a stockpile of nuclear weapons and you say it's a deterrent, well, so suppose something goes wrong and something goes off. Suppose a meteorite hits the stockpile that you have, and suppose it's hot enough that it starts the plutonium to activate, you know, and then you have a release of nuclear fusion that might not be controlled, and you know, things could go wrong, very wrong. They do in the different nuclear reactors that we have that generate electricity, like Chernobyl. So if things go wrong and there's enough nuclear reactors that have problems, or weapons that are detonated by some other unexplained thing like a meteor hitting it, there could be pretty soon parts of the parts of the world that we can't live in. And then our world might get very small too.
Right.
So I really feel that we have to look really deep into ourselves, and you know, actually be more like the vampires. I think vampires are very peace-loving people. I think they get a really bad rap when it comes to they're going to bite you and drain all your blood out. I never really bought that as a child. I really felt that that was I was an unpopular kid. Believe it or not, I grew up in a very conservative area of Maryland where if you do paranormal researching, you're crazy. You're definitely going to keep that minimum wage job forever. I'm not going to hire you. People, I tried to become an insurance man. No, we're not going to hire you. Who's going to buy insurance from a goofball like you that believes and sees and hears ghosts and spirits? They're not going to buy it from you. So, anyway, I had to put up with that as I was growing up in the 60s and 70s. And I paid the price for being a paranormal researcher. And I'm sure if I went back to Maryland and there's anyone living there who remembers me, I'm 67. They probably haven't changed a bit. So it's one of those things where when it comes to paranormal researching, uh, you give up a part of your life to
It's
do
true.
what you love and what you really believe in and know is out there. And I've had, for instance, in I rent a house, and the house I live in, sometimes the bedroom and the kitchen light will blink on and off, and I really feel it's my father. I actually did a paranormal short session about it. I think it's my father because I 2 months ago I wasn't going to write a book because I didn't have any new ideals, and I just started, just started saying, well, suppose I wrote about, and believe it or not, Planet of the Vampires came to mind, and I started to just write a chapter, and each day I wrote another chapter, and then I had like 21 chapters, and I thought, well, 41 pages, I'll go ahead and publish. And so 2 months ago, I was going to say, yep, there's not going to be any new book in 2025. And there is one now. So I think that was my father blinking the lights on in celebration because he always said that you take so long to do anything. And he says sometimes you just got to do it. You can't just
It's true.
think about it and say, well, I might make this better. I might make this longer. And he always said, sometimes you just got to do stuff. And I think
I agree.
he was happy within the speed that I was able to at least get the ebook published. I'm still waiting for approval on the from the publisher on the paperback book. They're much more stricter about paperback books than they are ebooks. So, but
Really.
paranormal happens to me whether I'm doing paranormal research or not. And I think it's because I've been doing paranormal research in some primitive way since I was 4 years old. I didn't start using or buying equipment until until I got the job with the federal government, working for the Laboratory of Scientific Services in
Hmm.
Houston, Texas, and that's after I got my degree in chemistry from UCF. So when I got that job, I had some extra money, and I also didn't have to work two or three jobs. even though I stayed in the Army Reserves until I retired. So I actually had two jobs. But towards the end, before I retired from the uh, Custom Border Protection as a forensic scientist, I only had one job. So I had the money, so I bought equipment. And the first piece of equipment I bought was the Obelisk 5B. And that was when I'm trying to think of the name of the gentleman. He was the only one that made it and sold it back then. I can't think of his name. Oh gosh, I can't think of the name of the company either. Sorry. But anyway, when you pay for it, he made it. So it took so long to get it because he didn't he just had a small company. He didn't have them on standby. So you didn't get your Obelisk 5 until you paid for it, and then he had to make it. So by the time I got my Obelisk 5, even though my second piece of equipment that I purchased was a mel meter, I'd already had my mel meter. So they were the first two pieces of equipment that I really enjoyed and liked
Mhm.
using and got good results with and still use to this day. Every once in a while, I'll also use the thermal imager. And but anyway, I've really enjoyed being a paranormal researcher on an individual level, but it's really kept me away from people because even where I live at now in Florida, if you if you say I wrote a book, they'll say, "What's it about?" I say vampires. And, oh my
Okay.
god! They have like this visceral reaction. And the last time I told a person, they said, "Are you a devil worshiper?" And I said, "No." And I said, "Paranormal has nothing to do with devil worshiping." But that is the mindset of most of the people in Florida. So a lot of times, I don't even tell people that I'm an author because when you have that type of mindset to have that, oh my God, he's a devil worshiper because he wrote a book about vampires, they're not going to buy your book. So so I don't mind being alone. I'm an empath. That's how I found out that there was more to life than living people. And that was when I was about 4 years old. So as an empath, I'm perfectly happy being alone, you know. But at the same time, it's nice to have friends, and it would be nice to have a girlfriend or a wife that understands me instead of gets upset every time I'm talking about paranormal. Right now, if I
I
had a
get that.
girlfriend or wife living with me and the lights start blinking off and on, they wouldn't live here anymore. Where to me, it's just a ghost or a spirit communicating. So why bother to get upset? What's the point?
Yeah.
So anyway, my life in a nutshell has been like a roller coaster ride of people hating me because I was doing paranormal research and as an empath, when you try to explain empathic abilities to most people, they're like, "So you're hallucinating?" No, but with me, my empathic abilities come through being at a location for a prolonged period of time. Like when I was at the Hayes house, I could pick up on the residual energy and probably some of the intelligent energy of Kathleen Hayes, who was married to Pat Hayes, and they purchased the Hayes house in 1942. And Kathleen Hayes lived there the longest. She lived there until 1996 when they sold the Hayes house.
Wow.
So her
Wow.
residual energy was very strong. And I had just picked up on she wanted someone to buy the house and use it as a family home. She wanted, people to enjoy Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners there the way her family did from apparently 1942 up until the time she sold the house. That was the meeting place for the family for Thanksgiving and for Christmas. and that's what she wanted, but that never happened. The next door motel bought it and just turned it into like a bed and breakfast. So and when they bought it, they really tore a lot of the original wood out of the interior of the house on
Oh,
the second floor because a gentleman who
oh,
was
that's a
doing
shame.
work there, who had actually read my book, The Hayes House Ghost of People Too, sent me a picture. He says, you wouldn't recognize the house now. And he was standing probably on the far northeast corner of the house. And he took a picture, and you could see all the way through uh, to the um to the southwest side, which would be Sunshine's room. And he was standing probably towards the front of the original bathroom on the second floor. And you could stay straight through. They just tore all the wood out, and you're losing
Huh.
all that stone tape theory, where there's residual energy within the wood of the house. You're losing all that. So even if somebody goes there and gets permission to do a book in the future and does paranormal research, they'll never have the level of paranormal activity that I had, at least from the ghosts and spirits that I experienced because of the loss of the residual energy. And I was in Apalachicola, I guess about a month ago, and I had taken pictures and post on my social media, Facebook and Instagram, where they're now tearing the original siding, the shiplap siding that was put on the house in 1908 when it was built by Jeff Buck, the first family that lived there. They're tearing that off on the west side. I don't know if they'll do it on every side, but I was only there that day and I got pictures of that. So that's more loss of residual energy. And I feel
Yep.
that the spirits may stop being a guardian angel to the Hayes house. Like I feel that the Buck family and the Hayes family and the Gibson family were actually doing when I was doing my paranormal research back in 2016 to like 2018. I think the ghosts and spirits will lose interest or maybe that connection or bond with the house because of the lack of the original material that was there when they were living. So that
Could
I
be.
find that so sad. And I think everyone who has a house and wants to preserve it, they have to leave as much of the original there as possible so that you keep your ghosts and spirits. Because I really think those ghosts and spirits are like a connection from God where they can, it's like your sympathetic nervous system where you touch a hot stove and you pull away quickly. If you had to take time for your brain to think about it, your fingers would be melted off. So
It's
you don't
true.
want that. And I think the ghosts and spirits are in many ways are like our sympathetic nervous system. They can lend help right away and assist you right away. And I'm glad I had that. I really feel that's been very helpful in my life.
It's good that you come out feeling positive versus, other people who experience things like that. They don't come out of it so positive.
I know it's sad. It's
Yeah,
sad because
it is.
I hope as a paranormal researcher I can help that. I remember I was in St. Augustine and I was talking to a gentleman. It was a antique shop, and he also sold coins. And I told him that I'd written a book. I think at that time I just had the Hayes House Ghoster People too. And he smiled and said, I'm having such trouble with my daughter. And I say, why? And he says, well, she says she has somebody in her closet that's looking at her. And I said, I had that too when I was a kid. And I didn't understand what was going on then. But I told him, I said, what's happening? It's the guardian angel that protects you, that's looking over you. And I said, if I could tell her that, it would probably save her a lot of sleepless nights like I had as a kid. He said, "Well, all
No,
right." Well,
yeah,
he
right.
said, he said, I'll have her here tomorrow. So I went back the next day and I talked to her and I explained to her that I was the same way when I was a kid. and I told her about my closet and how I just wanted to shut the closet door. And I told her what it was. And then she got a big
Hmm.
grin on her face. So I talked to the gentleman maybe a week later. And at that time, I was working on another book that I haven't written yet. So I was in St. Augustine for probably a couple months or so, maybe longer. And I went back into the shop and I said, "Well, how's things with your daughter?" He says, "Thank you so much." He says she sleeps fine now and is not worried about whatever she thinks is in the closet. And that made me feel so good.
Absolutely.
And I feel if more kids could talk to me or at least hear me talk about it on the TV show, look how many kids can be relaxed when they go to sleep and not worried and
Oh, yeah.
upset. And the bottom line is a guardian angel, for whatever reason, God says, all right, you want to be reincarnated into maybe a being on another planet, or you want to go to Earth and be a guardian angel. And maybe they're assigned to people, and maybe God does it. And maybe the only way these guardian angels can be of any help to you is to be close enough that you can sense it. And I don't want little
It's true.
kids or even adults to be afraid because it's just their guardian angel. So I would
Right.
rather people just be happy, not fearful, not afraid. And just like me, I'm not afraid that a blood sucking vampire is going to come into my house and try to kill me. But I do worry about living people who might think I'm a devil worshiper for writing a book like Vampires Dead or Alive, or writing a book about, you know, va- uh, Planet of the Vampires. I'm afraid they might break into my house and want to harm me because somehow they think I'm against God, which I'm not, or that I'm a devil worshiper. That worries me. So, anyway,
Well, you've made some very valid points, I must say. Um, Now, have these stories just been floating around in your head for years before you finally got to put them down on paper,
well, not with the
or is
book.
this something new that?
Well, I'll go one book at a time. With the book, just new to released as an ebook and soon to be released as a paperback, Planet of the Vampires was something that I just started thinking about maybe May or June. And I didn't start writing
Mhm.
it until probably late July. So no, that wasn't floating around in my head at all. That just came very quick, which I'm happy that it
Interesting.
did. But when it comes to vampires, dead or alive, that was something I've been thinking about since I was in middle school when I first saw the uh, British sitcom Dark Shadows. And I'm so happy there was a Dark Shadows because as a 4-year old whose parents were upset because they thought because I was had empathic abilities and was doing paranormal research, they thought I was either psychologically insane or mentally retarded or even worse yet, gay.
Oh,
And I don't see the connection there, but that's what they
yeah, I
thought.
don't either.
And none of that is true. I'm not crazy. I'm not a homosexual, and I'm not mentally retarded. Well, I don't know what the term is today if I offended anyone by saying that, but uh, I don't fall into any of those categories. And I think it's sad that most Americans are so illiterate in the paranormal that they would think such things. But of course, this was back in the early 60s. And in the early 60s, I guess my parents were guided wrong, maybe by doctors or maybe by the church. But somebody sure gave them some wrong guidance. And, I was always hoping my daughter would have empathic abilities. But I didn't want to bring it up because, after getting divorced from her mother, the whole family hated my guts. I'm pretty sure about that. And of course, by the time my daughter was in high school, she had learned to feel the same way. She fostered the same feelings they felt. But I was always hoping that my daughter would have empathic abilities, and hoping that she would. I would find out from her. I don't.
Yeah.
You never want to lead a child, because if you lead a child, they might be playing with you or think you're playing with them. But to the best of my knowledge, she did not have any empathic abilities at all. And my empathic abilities are so slight that I can't rely on them for paranormal research. I have to use equipment. And if I do a long term study, what I mean by study is re- retep- re- doing repetitiously paranormal research in the same area, then I can pick up feelings and emotions from anyone who lived there for at least 20 or 30 years. If it's a person
Oh,
that
wow.
just lived there for a short period of time, I'm not going to pick up on anything. So my empathic abilities are very limited. Some people have even told me they thought that my empathic abilities were limited because of the way my parents acted concerning my empathic abilities when I was like 4 years old. No kid wants to have three of the negative labels, or three labels that aren't becoming of a child that wants to be brilliant and successful and get his education and be more than a minimum wage worker. So a lot of people think that my empathic abilities were kind of stopped or interfered with by such negative reaction from my family and even people that lived in the area where I lived in. So who knows what my empathic abilities might have been like if I would have had family and parents who fostered those and nurtured them
It's
instead
true.
of trying to give me a negative label.
It's true. Well, this has been really fascinating talking to you. Um,
Yeah, it's been fun.
it
How
is.
much
It
time do we
is.
have left?
Oh, we're already into the eighth hour. So, yeah, yeah, it went by really
Well,
quick. But I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. Now, before we go off the show, I would like to, um, you guys, I've always got something I need to highlight for you. But we've got the Medieval Fae Fest, and that is going to be in Mariana on November the 8th and the 9th, right on Highway 90, right outside Mariana. Um, been working our tails off on this thing, and it's the first year that we're doing it, so we're trying to make it as glorious as we can, but knowing that we have limitations with it being our first year. Now, of course, it's going to be much bigger and better next year, and the year after that, who knows? But to go on the site, it's the medievalfaithfest.com, and it'll give you all your information there, whether it be the tickets or what's going to be there. It's going to have all your information that you want right there. And we're not just by the internet. We have a number, and you can actually call and talk to somebody. So, I just hope I can see a lot of you guys out there for the Medieval Faith Fest. And then next year, we've really got some stuff in the works for next year. We're going to expand out by at least one more con next year. So, um, yes, where can you get Keith's books? Now, you
well,
said
let me start.
Amazon. Go ahead.
Well, let me start with the Hayes House. The Hayes House is only available ebook on Kindle. The second book, Vampires Dead or Alive, is available paperback on Amazon, ebook on Kindle. And right now, the newly released Planet of the Vampires is only available ebook on Kindle. And right now, the publisher is reviewing the paperback version. Hopefully, it'll be available later on tonight or tomorrow. If they find more stuff that I have to correct, it could be in a couple days. But there will be a paperback and there is an ebook of my new book, Planet of the Vampires. And I also have
Uh,
a
it-
YouTube channel. My YouTube channel, I've been doing it since about 2021, and I do have some
mhm.
videos on there that are as old as 2020. So check out my YouTube channel. I have the entirety of my paranormal short sessions that I've done in different areas, from St. Augustine to Panama City to Destin, Florida, to Panama, so check it out. And most of my paranormal short sessions are anywhere from, say, 15 minutes to a little less than 30 minutes long. And I also do the promos. I put the promos on YouTube that I do. I do short promos of every paranormal short session so that I can put it on Instagram and Facebook. And they usually only give you a minute. So I try to keep my promos down to a minute, but sometimes if the paranormal is good, I'll run over. So if you're ever seeing what I do on my Facebook or my Instagram page, then go ahead and check out my YouTube channel. It's free to subscribe. It's called Paranormal Short Sessions by Keith Evans. And you'll get to see all the promos in their entirety. Because sometimes they run for maybe 2 or 3 minutes, but you only get to see the first minute on Facebook and Instagram. Uh, there won't be any book signings. Right now, I'm publishing through um, Kindle Direct Publishing. And if
Mhm.
I buy a book, I have to pay, you know, I have to pay, what everyone else pays. And it's too expensive. Now, if
Yeah.
you buy a book, on Amazon and you ever run across me, I'd be more than happy to sign it. Sometimes when I go to do paranormal research, like in Georgia, I'll have a person that'll recognize me, and they're just all smiles and tickled to death, and they never thought they would. There was a young lady in St. Mary's, and she was so happy that she met me. Apparently, she was a paranormal enthusiast, and her boyfriend wasn't. And he thought that she was bothering me, and I said, "No, no, no bother at all." She didn't have her book with her, but I never saw her again. But it just light up my face to know that she was happy to meet me, and that there are people out there that think
Absolutely.
I'm pretty cool. I know there's a lot of people that think I'm not cool because they've told me the last time I did book signings, which was with the first book, but the first book was done through a novelty publisher, which cost me thousands of dollars, and I would never do that again. But
No.
anyway, that's the reason why I don't do book signings, because through a novelty type, at that time I was paying to have my book at book and mortar at the brick and mortar stores like Barnes and
Mhm.
Noble. So Barnes and Noble
Right.
would actually get it. Now, when it comes to, I think I did book signings in Dothan back in either uh, 2018 or 2019. I did at least one, and I had to get the books on my own from the publisher, but they did give me a discount. And what I did was sell the books to. It wasn't Barnes and Noble. It was that other bookstore in Dothan. Oh gosh, I can't think of it. Sorry, bookstore, I can't think of your name, but they actually bought the books from me, and then during the book signing, people would just, all the books were signed, and then they would take it up to the cash register and purchase it.
Huh.
But I can't think of that bookstore. But they were pretty good. Not Books a Million. Uh, they have dark orange, dark orange lettering, and they also sell other things. They'll sell like used cameras and stuff like that. And they're more than just a
Wow.
bookstore. I think they had, when I was there, it was around Halloween. So I think they had Halloween costumes and all for the kids to buy, stuff like that. Uh, but anyway, wasn't Books a Million, and it wasn't Barnes and Noble. It was the other one. Oh, Second and Charles in Dothan, Alabama. Yeah, and they were really good people to work with as far as doing a book signing. They bent over backwards for me, so I appreciate that. If anyone is looking, since you are kind of based close to Dothan, tell the gentleman at Second and Charles who managed the place, thank you so much. But right now, my situation is just not situated where I can afford to go out and buy a whole lot of books and pay retail price for it and just break even on it when I sell it at a book signing. But if anyone sees me out on the street, unless I'm going to a doctor's appointment and can't be late, I'd be more willing to sign your book if you get one paperback uh, of the book Vampires Dead or Alive or Planet of the
Hmm.
Vampires. If you see me, I'm more than happy to sign it for you.
Thank you. That sounds great. And I'm probably going to take you up on that. I want to read these books. I want to see what's going on with them. Now you got me beat. So, yeah, I want to check them out myself. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's actually been very interesting and I've enjoyed it very much. And
Well,
I've
thank you for
enjoyed your
having me.
company. Thank you. Oh, you're very welcome anytime. Um, and like I said, it's kind of got a completely different way of seeing things like vampires. You're going about it in a completely different way than what people are normally used to. And I
Right.
like that change because anything, we don't really know that much about them. So anything is very possible. And your situation that you have is just as plausible as any of the other ones. So I find that fascinating myself. But Keith, thank you so much for coming. And I've really enjoyed it. And everybody out there, we'll be back next Tuesday at 7 o'clock. And if my work don't kill me first, I swear. And I'll be back at 7 o'clock and we'll talk to you then. Keith, thank you again. You take care.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for coming.